Your herbs are limp by day 3. Your lettuce turns slimy at the edges by day 4. Your green onions go soft and yellow before you have used half the bunch. This happens to almost everyone, almost every week, and almost nobody questions whether it has to. Here is one trick right now before you decide whether to trust the rest of this video. Wrap fresh herbs loosely in a slightly damp paper towel, then place them in a sealed container in the fridge. Not the bag they came in, not standing in a glass of water on the counter. A container, damp towel, sealed. Herbs stored this way commonly last 2 to 3 weeks instead of 3 to 5 days. Try it with your next bunch of coriander or parsley. It works, and it is not an internet hack. It is a storage method Japanese households have used for generations, long before anyone needed a study to explain why. 10 tricks. Trick 4 sounds like it would ruin the vegetable and does the exact opposite. Trick 8 is what professional Japanese produce sellers use that almost no home kitchen has ever adopted. Japanese households have historically had smaller refrigerators than Western ones and have shopped more frequently in smaller quantities, which meant every single item bought needed to survive until it was used, without waste, without exception. That pressure, sustained across generations, produced a body of precise, tested storage technique passed down the way any genuinely useful skill is passed down, grandmother to mother to daughter, refined by repetition rather than research papers. The first trick already demonstrated: herbs, damp towel, sealed container. The second trick is standing root vegetables upright, not lying flat. Carrots, spring onions, and asparagus were grown standing vertically, drawing water upward from the root. Laid flat in a fridge drawer, they continue trying to grow toward what they perceive as up, bending and depleting their own stored energy in the process, which is a large part of why they go limp faster than expected. Standing them upright in a small container with an inch of water at the base, refrigerated, lets them continue drawing moisture the way they were designed to. Spring onions stored this way commonly stay crisp for 2 weeks instead of 1. The third trick is wrapping tomatoes individually in paper, stem side down, never in the fridge at all. Cold temperatures below about 12 degrees Celsius damage the cell structure inside a tomato, which is why refrigerated tomatoes turn mealy and lose flavor. Stored at room temperature, stem side down so the scar does not draw in air, wrapped individually in paper to prevent the ethylene gas each tomato releases from accelerating the ripening of its neighbors, tomatoes commonly last 10 to 14 days instead of going soft within 4 or 5. Trick 4. The one that sounds like it would ruin the vegetable. Washing lettuce and leafy greens immediately after buying them, then drying them completely before storage. This runs against the common advice to wash vegetables only right before eating, on the theory that moisture speeds spoilage. The opposite is true for leafy greens specifically. Washed thoroughly, then spun or patted completely dry, then wrapped in a dry paper towel and sealed in a container, the greens are already clean and ready when needed. And critically, any bacteria or soil-borne organisms present on the leaves at the point of purchase have already been removed rather than sitting on the leaf surface, accelerating decay for days. Lettuce stored this way commonly lasts 2 weeks rather than going slimy within 4 days. The fifth trick is storing mushrooms in a paper bag, never plastic. Mushrooms are over 90% water and continue respiring after being picked, releasing moisture. Sealed in plastic, that moisture has nowhere to go, condenses on the mushroom surface, and creates the slimy texture that appears within 2 or 3 days. A paper bag, loosely folded closed, allows the released moisture to escape while still protecting the mushrooms from drying out entirely. Mushrooms stored in paper commonly last 10 days instead of 3. The sixth trick is separating ethylene-producing fruit from ethylene-sensitive vegetables entirely. Apples, bananas, and avocados release significant ethylene gas as they ripen, which accelerates the ripening and subsequent decay of anything stored near them. A bag of apples sitting beside broccoli or leafy greens in a fridge drawer will noticeably shorten the life of both. Traditional Japanese kitchen storage keeps ethylene producers physically separated, a different drawer, a different shelf, never sharing a sealed space with anything sensitive to the gas. The seventh trick is storing potatoes with an apple in the same container, in the dark. This one sounds contradictory given trick 6, but the mechanism here is intentional rather than accidental. The small amount of ethylene an apple releases actively suppresses sprouting in stored potatoes, extending their usable life significantly. Kept in a dark, ventilated container, light causes potatoes to produce solanine, a bitter and mildly toxic compound, and turns the skin green. With one apple included, potatoes commonly stay sprout-free for 2 months instead of 3 to 4 weeks. Trick 8, the professional one. Storing ginger buried in dry soil or sand, not in the fridge. Traditional produce sellers in Japan store fresh ginger root buried in slightly damp sand, replicating the below-ground conditions it grew in. A small container of sand kept in a cool, dark cupboard with the ginger root buried a few centimeters deep keeps it plump and usable for months rather than the 2 to 3 weeks a piece of ginger typically survives shriveling in a fridge drawer. Most home kitchens have never tried this because it sounds more complicated than it actually is. It takes 2 minutes to set up and requires no maintenance after that. The ninth trick is freezing citrus zest before the fruit itself starts to turn. Lemons and limes are often used for their zest long before the fruit's flesh would otherwise be used, and the zest itself freezes exceptionally well, retaining nearly all of its oil and flavor for months. Zesting the fruit the day it is bought, freezing the zest in a small sealed container, means the most perishable and most valuable part of the fruit is preserved indefinitely, regardless of what eventually happens to the fruit itself. The 10th trick is storing cut vegetables, once sliced, submerged in water rather than left dry in a container. Once a vegetable's cell walls are cut open, it begins losing moisture rapidly to the surrounding air, which is why pre-cut vegetables wilt and discolor far faster than whole ones. Submerging cut carrots, celery, or peppers fully in water in a sealed container prevents that moisture loss almost entirely. Changed every few days, this method keeps cut vegetables crisp for up to 2 weeks instead of the 3 or 4 days they typically survive once cut and left dry. 10 tricks. None of them require special equipment beyond containers and paper you already own. Every one of these came from households where wasting food was never an option, refined over decades by people who never once needed a scientific paper to know it worked. Pick one thing in your fridge right now that usually goes bad before you finish it. Try the matching trick tonight. Come back in a week and tell us in the comments how many extra days you got. That is the only comment this video actually wants. Not which trick sounded good, but which one you tested and what happened. I will see you in the next one.